Hello everybody, how you doing? Happy Sunday. How'd you like the entertainment with Chris Proudfoot? Yeah, he really made a fool of himself on web sleuths, and I'm really glad he did it. So I just thought I'd come on here. I want to show you guys something tonight. I think that it correlates. I think that there are things that are very suspicious and that leads to or refers to abuse in Sebastian's house. And I want you to listen to someone else's story of what happened to him. I'm going to stop it here and there. Plus, there's things that I want to discuss, and I think it's really important that you understand some things that happen in child abuse and some similarities of what's going on with Sebastian. But I just want to thank everybody for their wonderful comments. I want to thank all the people who view my videos. I just want you to know that I really appreciate you. I'm grateful to every one of you. And I think that you have a lot of input, good input. And, you know, I love it when you guys share with me whatever you're thinking, because it gives me thoughts. And, you know, I think when we are all together, you know, on the right way of thinking, that we, when we're in unity or whatever you want to say, we do better. Because I think there's really a lot of smart people out there, like you guys. There's a lot of you. Like I told Thomas Randall, he's one of my subscribers, that he just has such good analyzing. When he left his comment, it was so good, you guys, and I was going to copy it and talk to you about it, but I'll just tell you, it was really good. If you go on my last, community post regarding Katie Proudfoot, he put his comment in there, and he really had a lot of good observations. And I told him he should start his own YouTube channel, because I really thought that he did a great job in analyzing and discernment. But anyways, you guys, so Chris Proudfoot was on Web Sleuths, and he showed us his true colors, didn't he? Those of you who follow my channel, who know that are victims of domestic abuse, also know a whole bunch about child abuse. We really do. And, you know, you can't argue with a man who's had experience with things, okay? So when you know about things, it's okay. You know, you can argue with them, but you're not going to win the argument, because people who've gone through it, people who've watched it and seen it, they're gonna know it, and they can spot it. And I know a lot of you spotted the child abuse in Summer Wells' case, and you spotted in Sebastian's case. You know, the way that Chris Proudfoot talked, you know, he really showed us how controlling he is. And he showed us that there's no way that Sebastian would want to live in a house like that with a man who acts like that and talks like that and tries to control everybody, that is verbally abusive, that is, you know, trying to gaslight people and manipulate them with his, you know, by pushing them around, by talking all hostile and angry. And he showed his true colors, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion. And he showed that he is verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, disrespectful towards women. I was really disgusted, and it really hit my post-traumatic stress disorder, because let me tell you, listening to that kind of an abuser. And if I would have been Sebastian, I would want to run away. And that is the truth. But I'm not so sure he ran away. I don't know what kind of punishment was given to him, but I believe there was a punishment given to him. And I think that people that are that defensive and then have to come out swinging and fighting, it means that they got something to hide, just like Don Wells. More worried about what other people are saying about them, more worried about rumors or whatever. And if you're innocent, you could care less because you know the truth. And my dog's pulling on me right now because he wants to play. But anyways, I'll show you. Well, it's too dark. You can't see in here. But you guys, it's very scary what we've seen. And I don't care who you are. If you didn't see that as very scary for Sebastian and for Katie, then I don't know what to think. I think that they're covering up whatever happened to Sebastian. And I don't think it will be that long before the cops come and deal with this. And oh, by the way, before I start this video that I want to talk about, listen, for those of you who know about Susan Morphew, as early as tomorrow, maybe, they said this week, but then I heard another lady said that as early as tomorrow we could get the autopsy reports of Susan Morphew. Oh, I pray to God that, Barry's arrested this week. I would love to see that, wouldn't you? Those of you who have followed Susan Morphew, a mom went missing on Mother's Day out of Colorado. Her husband said she went on a bike ride, and they found her bike, and he made up a story about, he said, was it a neighborhood kids playing and laughing right outside? He said, sorry. Oh, was it a mountain lion? That was the very first thing that he said. And anyways, the police know that he did something to Suzanne. He made a bunch of trips to garbage bins all along on his way to Broomfield. He dumped a lot of her stuff in his stuff. He took actual the spa chemicals, and he bleached his boots, bleached his clothes at that motel room. That's why it smelled so bad. I mean, I know they got a lot of evidence on him, so I'm hoping and praying that Suzanne Morphew gets justice and that he is arrested this week. So pray with me, you guys, because Suzanne Morphew deserves justice. It took him forever to find her. And, she was a victim of domestic abuse, just like many are. And, anyways, I want to talk about child abuse. I want to talk about the signs that Sebastian was being abused. I want to talk about things that happened there. And I hope you'll stay with me and watch some of this, and we'll talk about it, okay? This lady, it's called Spillover with Alex Clark. That's her name. And she does an interview with this guy named Victor Marks. And I don't know if you've heard of him, but he goes into different places and teaches people things about ISIS and how they recruited people. He can disarm someone. He's the fastest disarmament guy, where he can just take a gun from somebody so quick. He's a master in Taekwondo, but he works with people in child trafficking because he was very, very abused badly and tortured as a little boy. And I'm just going to give you a trigger warning now. because there's a lot of sensitive information, and if stuff like this bothers you, I need to give you that warning, okay? But I want you to listen under fair use and copyright laws. I just want to discuss this, and for the purposes of using it as an example, maybe not everything that happened to this guy Sebastian endured, no. But I'm saying I want you to think about the abuse part of it and what could have happened to Sebastian, okay? So listen to this guy's story and we'll stop it and talk about it here and there, okay? Hold on.
This episode contains descriptions of murder, physical violence, child abuse, and animal abuse. Listener discretion is advised.
I gotta get past the spillover with Alex Clark, okay?
To yourself, one day you'll be so big and
Hold
strong
on.
that no one
Sorry.
will ever
I just wanted to get past the music and...
to yourself. One day,
Okay.
picture Louisiana in the 70s. Humid. You're so little. You hear neighborhood kids playing and laughing right outside. You wish you were with them. Instead, you're inside the house, and your stepdad is hurting you. You make a promise to yourself. One day, you'll be so big and strong that no one will ever hurt you again. And the bad men will pay. My guest today is a husband of 35 years, a father to 5 children, and has 5 granddaughters. He's a Christian and has traveled the world to places like Syria, Iraq, and Cambodia to help over 45,000 women and children with trauma relief who were victimized by ISIS. His ministry, All Things Possible, exists to identify, interrupt, and restore those affected by trauma all over the world. This is Victor Marks, and this is his story on The Spillover. Victor, could you describe your family situation and your home environment for us at 3 years old? Like, what did your house look like? Where were you living?
Yeah, at 3 years old, my mother was divorced, and she started dating a fellow that would later become my stepfather. And what she didn't realize at that moment was he was a pedophile. So he married her. She had 4 kids at the time.
And how did they meet?
I think in a bar, So it certainly wasn't a good church morning service. And the deal, my mother was 22 with 4 children. She had suffered from her past of being abused. And he was a predator. There's no other way to explain it. He was a predator. And sadly, he played on the emotion of a single mom, won her affection, and let her know he would take care of her and the children. And then she ended up marrying him.
And what state were you living in?
At that time, it was Louisiana.
Okay, so you grew up in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And up until that point, did your childhood seem happy overall?
I don't really have any given memories before that. I just knew that my biological dad didn't claim me as his kid when mom got pregnant. But he said, and she confirmed the night she got pregnant by my real father, he actually straddled her, put a gun to her head, and shoved rosary beads down her throat. And it was a sad beginning for any kid, but it wasn't until I was 3.5 that this other man came into our life. And for years, I thought he was actually my real dad. And I would learn later that my biological dad, was actually even alive. I didn't know it.
And so at first, did it seem pretty normal with this new stepdad? Were there any red flags?
Well, you constantly lived in fear. And when you're raised in that environment, it is the norm. But he started abusing me right away, both sexually, and my brothers and sisters physically, others sexually too. But it increased to a place where, and I'm sorry if any of your listeners need to, I don't want them to get triggered, but the abuse was to the point of torture. So I was electrocuted as a kid. I was dunked in a tub till I passed out, only to be waken up by him breathing into my mouth and him saying, boy, don't you ever forget I'm the one that gives you life. And it accelerated through a lot of harsh treatment, and the goal was to break my mind. And as a kid...
Okay, so I have to stop it here. I'm just going to say this, and I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything, but Katie had a pedophile living there at the house. A registered SO she was dating. She also let this child come play with Sebastian. Well, this teenager and SA Sebastian. And I'm just going to say this because I truly believe that these kind of things follow you. And I truly believe that if he was victimized, I think that he might have been victimized in that house. And males do it all the time. I mean, males do it to males. I mean, it's not just girls, and it's more prevalent now in males. And so I just wanted to say that it is a possibility, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but you never know what was going on in Sebastian's house with his stepdad.
The torture went on from about 3.5 to 7 years old, and he was effective in doing it.
So there wasn't any grooming necessarily that was taking place to get you comfortable with him. It just kind of just started happening.
Yeah, you don't have to groom anyone if the predator's allowed to be your caretaker.
See,
it just happens.
That's important, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you remember about the first time that he hurt you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to get too graphic on here, but the first time was I was tied to a bed by one of my arms.
Was there anybody home?
Mm-mm. And he let me stay there all day. I remember sitting on the ground with my arms still tied to the bedpost. And then he brought an animal in, a dead cat, and he had a knife, and he said, I want you to cut the head off this cat. And I'm terrified. And he said, if you don't, I'll cut your head off. So...
At 3?
Yeah, about 3.5. So, now the carcass of...
abusers and those who have murdered children, it is a proven fact that they are mean to animals. And they will use animals with their against their children to scare them, to use it as punishment to take animals away. Like Sebastian's animals were taken away, and all his stuff was thrown away in the trash, okay? So I just want to remind you, there were reports that Don Wells hurt animals and Summer's cat or kitten. So don't forget that is a part of this. And when you're looking at criminals or those who do things bad to people like this, normally these kind of people hurt animals at a young age.
The cat was empty, but he was trying to create such a traumatic effect that would shift my mind to dissociate. And, it worked, because I did. I used a knife, cut the cat's head off, and then he put the carcass on my head and blood dripped down on me. So that was the first really memory that I have of what would be the beginning of a lot of abuse.
That almost sounds to me like a satanic ritual of sorts.
I would say that there's a lot of satanic activity, whether intentional or whether just a person is demonized. But there's also, there, again, I don't want to go too deep. I normally don't talk like this, but there were government-funded programs that were intended to hurt children. And
Are you talking about like MK Ultra?
and there was another one called Project Bluebird that preceded that, and then Artichoke. My stepfather was in counterintelligence.
Really?
Yeah, and he had a background of
Listen.
doing horrible things to people.
In the military.
So, although I don't personally believe I was part of a funded project, someone who retired from the NSA contacted me after they heard me sharing some things, and they said, "Victor, you should look up Project Bluebird because it sounds like your stepfather had been part of that."
Did it seem like there were some similarities?
It shut me down for a long time. I don't want to talk about it because going through the list of what he did to me and what these projects would do to people was horribly similar.
What did the government claim that these types of experiments were supposed to do? Was it supposed to have some sort of positive impact?
No, it's the ability to control people. Mature Effect was a movie that came out, and if you look at the conditioning and programming of a person,
And to make you very afraid.
even kids were trained
And traumatized.
in combative weapons, but to become ultimately what the government could control to be killers.
But abusers
So,
do this.
I had a natural propensity because of this, I believe, to martial arts. And I still hold the world record for the fastest gun disarm.
I saw that.
He's
The
amazing.
fastest gun disarm. You would not even
You'd have to
believe
watch
it.
his
I mean,
videos.
it's like a flick of the wrist and all of a sudden, like, the whole gun's apart.
Yeah,
I've never seen anything like
I
it.
could teach you to do it.
I don't know, Victor.
It'd be great.
Okay, so yeah, so it was like a natural. Do you think that's just like a survival instinct? It kind of led you to be able to do those types of things?
Yeah, I believe, the reason I know I got so good at that is when I was 7 years old, he put me in a chair, my stepfather. He pulled out a pistol, pulled the hammer back, and he would tap the weapon to the side of my head. And he said, "Boy, if you ever tell anybody what I've done to you, I'll blow your brains out, and I'll call the police and tell them you shot yourself." So as a child, the only way to work through that intensive trauma, I just had fantasized one day I will be so fast, no one will be able to hold a gun to my head. And
You would not, you might think, well, that's really crazy, right? And horrible, and it is. But guess what? There are actually people who act like this with their kids, because I do know that for a fact.
that's how I think there's redeeming factors for anyone who has suffered trauma.
To control
You'll either get bitter
and scared.
bitter or better from it. And for me, I think that was the way I try to get better.
When the abuse was happening, did it seem like there was a pattern, like he would wait for your mom to be gone or your mom to be preoccupied with something so that he could abuse you?
Yeah, and that's a great question. People who abuse children are very methodical and very smart. It's not just, at a whim. They always want to cover their tracks, both timing, location, and, bath time, or I'm going to take him for a ride, or he'll go with me to work. One time he brought me to this place, and it was a morgue. And he actually put me in a chair and wrapped me with saran wrap. And he made me watch a cadaver be cut up and then burned in an incinerator. And obviously he had a connection to the person working at the morgue. But he goes, "Boy, if you ever tell anybody what I've done, I'll do that to you. No one will even know where you are."
So he's
They'll
been,
just say you ran away.
Do you think somebody like
Us
the morgue
and
worker,
him
for
this whole
example,
time.
knew the dynamic of what was going on?
I do. I believe there's a network of pedophilia. I believe there's a network of just evil people. And beyond that, most people do anything for money. We've proven that in the work we do now, because we do, counter pedophile work. We help rescue women or children. We do trauma relief. And like we talked before, right now we're trying to get a girl to a safe house in a different country this morning in order to get her out of the country. And all that requires is money and connections. So it's the same way on the side of evil. They typically have money or favors for things done.
You said that he electrocuted you and tried to drown you. When did you feel like the abuse really began to escalate?
Well, it just seemed like it always happened. I didn't feel like there was an escalation.
Like out of 7 days a week, how many days a week?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that. You know, the mind compartmentalizes, but there was enough regularity where, and victims will understand this, there comes a point where you don't fight it, where you don't try to, you just go along with it. So, yeah, I mean, the electrocution, I mean, he did stuff to reverse things. So one summer, this was in Mississippi, we moved to Mississippi out in the country, there was, he tied me down on a stack of wood, but he had me laid out. He poured water in my chest because I had a concave chest. Then he took a cattle prod and he would stick the prod into my chest but not let it touch my skin so it would leave a burn mark. And he'd hit it. Of course, it caused this electrocution shock. And what people don't understand, when you're about to get shocked, you hold your breath and you clench, and here it comes. The first thing that happens when it releases it, air actually will escape your lungs. And he would lean forward. It wasn't just the shocking, it was what was connected to the mind. And Alex, he would lean forward and he would say, do you know what that sound is leaving your body? It's a sound of hope leaving your body. It's not just air. And then those become what I call lies based in reality. You start to believe them. And it's no different from, some girl or kid raised in a family and either parents put them down and tell them, you'll never amount to anything. You're stupid, you're ugly. They hear these lies and then they'll repeat them enough where it becomes their truth. Mine just was associated with the physical torture.
And did you see him abusing, you said there were other siblings in the home, did you see him abusing them as well? Or were you the only one being sexually abused?
No, physically he would abuse and beat other siblings. And, we knew bad things would happen if you take someone into his room. And, I know because later we had to discuss it. One of my sisters was raped by him. She was pretty young. That hurts. A lot of times emotionally more than your own. Because you don't feel like you could do anything. And
did you guys talk about it in the moment, like being little kids talking about what was happening? It was just this secret.
Never. Because you risk being beaten or tormented. And one of the biggest things for me later, because I had faith, but I remember psychologists, and so people know, because what I hear a lot is when people say, you don't seem like you went through this. And I'm like, well, part of it was coping mechanisms, but I've also had 123 visits to a trauma specialist.
Wow.
In 9 months. I've been on Depakote, Depakine, Prozac, Zoloft, lithium, Buspar. Had to go in and out of the VA. I've been locked in a crazy room. I say crazy with a K. And I survived. And then with God's help, I thrived. But one of the main things that changed my life was when somebody said, where was Jesus with all this? Mm-hmm. And I remember telling the psychiatrist, I said, shut your pie hole right now. I'm going to knock you through the wall. He goes, why are you so angry? I said, I don't want to bring Jesus in this. I know he's loving and he's good, but I don't want to ask where he was. And he challenged me. He said, well, you should. And 2 years later, I did. And I actually had a vision. One of the times he was beating me, I'm laid out on the bed. He would put you in your underwear and he would beat you with this belt. And the last thing that happened
Which
is
beat
I
you with
saw
the belt.
Jesus actually enter into the scene and then place his body on top of mine to protect me while I was getting beat. I knew at that moment Jesus wasn't an absent person, but he was actually a real loving God that would enter into that pain with me.
Take us to being
Hold
5
on.
years old and being left in a commercial cooler to die. What do you remember about that day leading up to the event?
I remember playing in the woods.
Sorry.
And
Go ahead.
going down to the pond and then going up by the chicken house. Again, this was in, Mendenhall, Mississippi. This was at my grandparents, his parents' farm. I remember finding an old corn cob, sticking feathers in the back of it, chicken feathers, and throwing it up and watching it whirly bird down. You'd make a toy. And then one of the neighbor guys came up to me. He said, "Hey, I want to show you something."
Listen.
Here. It wasn't my stepfather, it was someone else. So I followed him in, he shut and locked the door. And he said, "This is what's going to happen. If you tell anybody, I'll kill you." And I remember just going, not again, not another person. And,
This is important.
He put me in this lockdown cooler, shoved me in there, locked it, and I remember sitting in there, and it's pitch black, but hearing this cooler fan and thinking, I'm gonna die. I guess it's just my time. And again, on a spiritual note, as horrifying that is for a child, I remember a very felt presence come right next to me. And it had to be an angel. I'm convinced it had to be an angel because it didn't feel
Wow.
evil. And then I ended up passing out.
But
And how long were you in there?
it's coming up.
And what does this mean, a commercial cooler? Like, it was like a freezer or what?
It was in between a freezer and a cooler, a walk-in, but it was the summer, so all I had was shorts on with a little tank top. And he was hoping I would die or hypothermia.
Do you think he was sent by your stepdad to do this, or he was just a total random person?
I don't. I think he was just a random person that lived nearby. And this is
Here
the
it
thing
is.
about someone who's abused. Once you get abused once, it's almost like an X on you. And then predators see that. They sense it and they see it and they'll wait. And he had known me. He was at work on the farm. And then he waited for his time. Me alone. Nobody there. And when I didn't come home, my family started looking everywhere for me. And hours had passed. They thought I drowned in the pond. They looked in the woods. They finally came to this, in between these chicken houses and opened this cooler. And I was unconscious. They rushed me to the house, wrapped me in a blanket.
Did they tell you if your fingers were blue or your lips?
Oh, my feet, fingers, I couldn't talk. I was unconscious for a while. And, it's country, so they don't rush you to the hospital unless you, duct tape can't fix it. So when I was able to finally communicate, I told them what had happened. Because unlike my stepfather, this was just a neighbor bad guy. And my brothers and a couple of cousins went and found him. They kicked in his door. They beat him in front of his own family, drug him outside, hooked him behind our tractor, drug him behind drug him behind my mama's house, fashioned a rope, threw it over a pecan tree, and hung him. They tied it in the back of the tractor. They hung him till he passed out and cut him down. This is all in my documentary, The Victor March Story. People can watch it at my website or YouTube. And I literally show you the same tree. And I couldn't believe it was actually still there. I was like, oh my gosh.
So then what happened? Did the police find out? Did this guy leave you alone?
This is a country. You don't call the law for much. It's just country justice. So
Country justice.
yeah, I wish there was more of that, honestly, in our nation right
Go
now.
off.
And I
Amen.
appreciate DeSantis making a law for any person, adult that rapes a child, gets the death penalty. I think that's one of the best laws that's ever been passed because without consequences, they fear nothing because they seldom get caught. And when we work with law enforcement to catch pedophiles, we try to help them pursue and pray to God for a good DA. But in other countries, justice is handled different. And people would both be glad and horrified at some of the things that happened to.
So, I mean, when your stepdad sees the way that you and your siblings, everybody retaliates against this neighbor for abusing you, did the abuse suddenly stop? Was he scared then, like, oh, you know what, maybe this is like a wake-up call for me?
No way. He's like, that's right, he shouldn't mess with you. Has nothing to do with him and his ownership of me.
So then how long did the abuse continue for? Because you were 5 years old at this cooling incident.
Yeah, about another 2.5 years.
And so then what happened?
Dang you, Alex. you, I've always known you to be a great interviewer. That's why I share your stuff, but man, you ask questions few ever do. So, when it was time to end everything, and when he would stop, gosh, I can't believe I won't tell you all this. He woke me up one morning early, put me in the back of his car, made me lay down. He drove me to a little wooden house, and it was still dark. We walked in, and it was an abandoned house. It just had one light hanging down, but it didn't look like it was being used much. There was a hole cut out in the middle of the floor, a wooden floor, that dropped down, and then it was a hole in the dirt. And there was another fella there, and they're talking, and the only thing I could just process as a kid is I'm about to die. Because I've been so close to death and things that happen. And then I hear this man tell my stepfather, I don't want to do this anymore. And I thought, and then my stepfather was a very well-educated, smooth-talking. This was not you're the guy in the back of a van. This was a guy who was well-read. Hemingway was his favorite author. I mean, and he told the guy, I understand. And when the guy relaxed, my stepfather hit him, boom, and knocked him unconscious. Because he was a brawler in a fight. He dragged the guy to the hole, put him on his knees, handcuffed him, his hands behind his back. Then he pulled out a pistol. And he said, come here, boy, you're going to shoot this man. And
to you. And you are 7?
About 7.5. And he said,
had you ever held a gun before at this point?
Rifles, shotguns, not a pistol. And now the guy's conscious, and he knows what's going on, and he starts saying, please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me. And again, I need people to understand, once you're conditioned and programmed, it's not the end of the world when you do something. Mm-hmm. You're programmed. And you can see case studies in Kurdistan where teenage boys were abducted by ISIS, and within a year, they're so brainwashed, they're driving V-beds, explosive cars into troops. They're completely brainwashed. So I grabbed the pistol, put it to the guy's head, and I started trying to squeeze, and I don't know if it was because I couldn't squeeze the trigger or something in me was fighting the finality of what was about to happen. And my stepfather put his hand on my wrist, and then he put his finger in the trigger well over my finger on the trigger, and he pressed until the gun went off. And it shot the guy in the back of his head. And the guy slipped over. He did.
So at 7 years old, I mean, you're essentially coerced into killing this man in a way. I mean, you didn't necessarily pull the trigger.
But you still feel responsible.
Of course. Did my first hike in...
Okay, so that's where we're going to stop it, but of course, I am not saying that all these things happened to Sebastian, okay? I just wanted to show you someone's story of child abuse. But it's a really good video. I recommend you. It's called Real Alex Clark is the channel. And it's called Drowned, Electrocuted, and Tortured as a Child. And Victor Marks. And, but he said, it's like once it happens to you, it's like there's an X on your forehead. And all these, chomos, child, MOs, come out of the woodwork. And, what are the chances? I mean, I'm just wondering, and I'm not trying to bring up his pull-ups, but what are the chances that really bad things were happening in Sebastian's home and he started messing his pants again? And Chris, you're full of crap because you said that children with autism, all these kids have bathroom problems. That's not true. That is not true. I don't believe that for a minute. And why would you want to make up some kind of excuse for his bathroom problems? It makes you look really suspicious to me. Like, all you have to say is he's struggling with things that happened to him in the past. But no. And why didn't you take him to the doctors to get checked out to find out why he was still doing that? Why didn't you address that? Why didn't you get him counseling like Seth said? You guys failed him, as far as I'm concerned. These are my opinions only. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but Chris, you're full of it. And you are gaslighting people, and you are on the defense, and you and Katie been running, or you would have been home waiting for Sebastian. You say, I heard you in an interview, both of you say, oh, Sebastian's going to come through that door and he's going to have a bunch more friends. Really? You're not home. How can Sebastian come through that door? But the thing that I want to say to you guys is that how do we don't even know that maybe something really, there was a punishment done to Sebastian and he's locked somewhere. He was put somewhere to hide. To torture him. We don't know. I mean, that guy, it was meant for him to die a couple times. So, if it wasn't for people searching for him, they finally found him in that cooler. But that guy meant for Victor to die as a little kid. So, and, you guys, I really was thinking about this a lot. I have a feeling, the reason that I say this, I have a feeling that Sebastian, like Peter Hyatt said, was kicked out of the house. You're not taking your shoes. You're not taking anything out of this house. You're not taking your phone. You want to go, then you get going. And it could very well be that they hurt him, but I'm wondering if they got in a big fight and they kicked him out of the house and Sebastian went somewhere and curled up into something to get warm. I just seen a video the other day. There was a little girl and they found her in one of those metal tubes, like a culvert. Like it was just laying on the ground by a work site, and they looked in this round tube thing, metal tube thing, a pipe, and she was in there, crammed in there, and they didn't even know how she got in there. But, well, we know how this happens, but what I'm saying is he could have very well went in somewhere to get warm, and it could be like a crazy place that nobody knows. He did like to hide on his family, I heard. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they said. And So it is a possibility. It is a possibility that he could have left because maybe they were hurting him and maybe they were threatening him, because that's what it seems like to me. And like I said, I'll tell you what, there's no way that I would want to live with Chris Proudfoot the way he acts. And I don't care if you want to, you don't like what I'm saying. Well, you can just kiss it, because I have my own opinion and I have a right to my opinion. And it's just how I feel about the situation. And I think you're a total jerk. I think you're a controlling narcissist. And I think that, you've been abusive to Sebastian and to Katie. And I think that you control her too. I'm sorry, I really do. And I think that's why she remains silent, because of the way you talk. My God, who could get a word in over you and the way you act? Wow, I was just so triggered, so upset when I heard that interview. I was like, are you kidding me right now? I mean, I was hoping that I could smack that guy for talking like that and acting like that and trying to control Seth. Seth, I wouldn't trust him, not even for a minute. I would not trust Chris. Not at all. And he said he's videotaping you and has terabytes of everything you said and everything everybody said. Well, why is that, Chris? What, do you want to sue people? Are you sue happy? But you have a missing child? But you're going to worry about what other people are saying about you, really? People have a right to their opinions. This is a missing child, and it's not even your child, Chris. It's not your child. And I don't care if just because he lived with you in that house, he is not your child, and you didn't even act like any kind of dad to him, except for probably to control him every minute of his life. You drove me crazy just listening to you for a little bit. Man, I bet you really set off Sebastian's nerves. You really traumatized him, I believe. That's my opinion. But yeah, you're really controlling, and it was just terrible. I'm sorry, you guys, but now we know the truth. Everybody knows the truth now. The PIs, all of us, we heard it with our own ears, that he was abusive and controlling. And that's probably the biggest reason why Sebastian is no longer around. Now, it is a possibility that if he did, get locked out or ran away, that maybe somebody's seen him and he could be being held at some creepy, weirdo pedophile's house. We don't know. But I think that it's going to come out too that stepdad and mom know where he is, know what happened to him, and it's probably not good. But you know what? I could not believe this. Every day, I was praying for Sebastian and saying, Lord, please let somebody find Sebastian. Please let anyone find Sebastian, right? Because I was really thinking that, they're probably going to have to do a recovery. But then the day before yesterday, I woke up and Sebastian's face flashed in my mind. And I said, Lord, please help Sebastian wherever he is. Help him out of this situation and be with him and protect him. And so it was a completely different kind of prayer. And I just thought, wow, that's weird. Strange that I would just pray like that all of a sudden and wake up thinking like that, because I have been thinking so negative for so long. But, there is a very, very small possibility, slim, but possibility that, like, a teacher at school could have told him, if you ever have problems, you come down to where I'm at, or you come to my house, or, if you send me something, I'll come and get you. Meet me outside. But I really don't think that's what happened, unless Sebastian was trying to walk to his dad's, and maybe, he wasn't seen on camera, and maybe he had to go somewhere to get out of the weather. It wasn't that warm, you guys. No shoes, no coat. No. He really could have, I believe he could have froze in that kind of temperature. Because he's not used to being out in the cold all night. I don't know. I just think it's pretty sad when somebody's ignorant to a special needs kid. And I do want to say this. Remember when Chris said that CP came to the house, Child Protective Services came to the house, because Sebastian, told the teacher that he got hit with the belt. And he said, this is Chris's word. This is what Chris said. He said that the CPS worker, it was the same lady who came before. Out of his own mouth, he admits that there's been at least 2 times Protective Services has been to his house recently. And we found out that it was in February, actually, and that's when Sebastian went missing. When you have open CPS cases or any CPS cases going on, when you have marital issues and custody issues and problems, sometimes bad things, very bad things can happen. And people are at risk, children are at risk of being hurt. It's, maybe Chris and Katie have nothing to do with this. Maybe. Okay? Everyone's innocent until proven guilty, and I can't say that they did anything. But they sure act very suspicious. And in my mind, in my opinion, I feel that they were abusive to Sebastian. I think Katie went along with it because I think a part of her was afraid of Chris. I don't know. I think he controls every move that she makes. So that's just my opinion, Other people have their opinions. They think Katie did this completely. She might have. She might have lost her temper with him. She might have did all those things that people are saying, and maybe even dropped him off. She could have got rid of him when she so-called went looking for him at the school that morning. He could be somewhere in that area. It could be that she met Chris's parents and they took him somewhere we don't know. And I don't care what Chris says. He can try to clarify it or say nothing like that happened. But until the police come out and tell us, then we'll believe it. And until then, we don't know. And we have a right to be suspicious. This is a child that got hurt or lost in your care. You were responsible for him. And now the public wants answers to this child. And we want to know where he is. So, and I don't think that you loved him. I don't think that you cared for him, Chris. I don't think that you did anything for him. I think that you were controlling and mean and hard on that child, on Sebastian. And it's really a really pathetic shame. And if I was Seth, I wouldn't put up with you for a minute. And Seth needs to man up and tell you off. How dare you act like that? And so disrespectful to women. That says a lot about your character, Chris. But, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Chris said, yeah, we told Seth something because the police agreed that, we'll tell Seth this and then he'll run with it. We'll tell him something and he'll run with it to YouTube with his rhetoric. Well, that is not somebody that you can trust that is working with you and, cares. No, or cares about Sebastian if you're playing games, Chris. So, it's a bunch of bull crap. I'm just disgusted with all these cases. I'm always praying for Summer Wells, always praying for Sebastian, Michael Vaughn, all of them that they're found. It's just disturbing. And, they had that memorial service for JJ and Tylee, Vallow, and Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. And, look at those parents. Wouldn't tell anybody where those kids were, and here they were. They murdered those kids and disposed their bodies like trash. And that memorial it was beautiful, and it's so sad. It really is. And we're hearing more about it every day. These children that these parents say are missing, or, whatever. They're at this place, or they're at that place, or they're visiting so-and-so. Yeah. Well, we're figuring it out pretty quick. So, yeah. It's been raining all day. The ground's wet. And, so yeah. I'm just, yesterday, I was really beside myself listening to Chris. I mean, talk about, I felt sorry for a lot of people. It really, really triggered their post-traumatic stress disorder. It really upset people's anxiety. Especially women who have been abused. They don't want to listen to somebody abusing. It makes them feel like that person is there abusing me, yelling at me, controlling me. It's bad. And I know I had a hard time with it. I don't know about you, but I did. I can't stand it when people act like that. I can't stand to be around that kind of person. But yeah, it upset me. I don't know about all of you guys, but it did upset me. And I want to recommend some good channels like T-Rev. I love that kid. That guy, he is the best to me. And he is a good friend to Seth. And Seth, I believe Seth cares about T-Rev. And I just love that channel. And they're good people over there. So subscribe to that channel. Also, I don't know. Anyways, you guys, I can't stand here any longer, but I just wanted to, have my comments, have my say about what I thought about what Chris did on Web Sleuths. I was just disgusted. Those PIs are really good. I appreciate them. I think they're doing a good job. And, I hope they see through all these bullcrap lies. So, and the gaslighting and the control. So anyways, you guys, I love you. I'll be talking to you soon. I'll try to come on this coming weekend. So I usually don't come on, only on the weekends, but I do try to come on, talk about a little something if something's bothering me or these kids' cases. But you guys have a good week. You take it easy. I love ya. God bless.